Oh, it was probably here to review the Kamen Saber DX Kougouken Saikou and Seiken Saikou driver. I apologize if I keep saying Saikou and Saikou because I don't know, they're too similar. Anyways, this is the traditional second quarter winter Christmas uh belt that gets released, near the end of December. And as you can see here, we have Saber right there, and Kamen Saikou himself, because he himself is the sword. Because, when he was initially announced, we had a bunch of people who were racist against swords. So, there we go with the Seiken Saikou driver. And there is the Wonder Ride book that's included. Kin no Bookie, Gin no Bookie? Buki, sorry. Here's the Saikou himself. Again, it's interesting it's in blue. It stands out, definitely. Then here's the back, the top, Saikou Hako. Obviously, here's what most people would want, Saikou Shadow, because again, they're racist against swords. So, yeah, let's get straight to this. So here's the entire, the contents out, the Kougouken Saikou itself, the Wonder Ride book, and the Saikou driver itself. Obviously, interestingly enough, it's a repaint of the Jock and Caliber driver. And then here we have the belt strap for said belt. So I'll quickly put this together. Finally, for once, they actually packaged a toy with the belt strap straight. So I really do not want to actually... So I try to rarely use these because these are the most straightest belt straps I've gotten. So it's like after years, not years, but like after like how much toys that they released with the bent belt straps, they finally were like, oh hey, let's actually, make these pristine for once. So I really don't want to like, ruin these. So again, the Seiken Saikou driver, and technically the full look is with the Kougouken Saikou. And I'll say this right now, this is a pretty interesting driver. Like, I actually kind of do like this thing in like the Kougouken Saikou in driver mode because it's actually interesting. But other than that, we're actually going to just remove the belt strap because again, I need to keep its pristineness. So, obviously we have to keep the buckle. And I forgot to compare it to the Jock and Caliber driver. To which, if I can quickly get this off. Like, obviously, it's just the gold plastic from the Saikou. And the silver, there's no paint on this one compared to this one. And obviously it's in purple. So, yeah. The Kougouken Saikou itself, again, it's pretty interesting. It's mostly in this dark gray plastic with, the gold plastic. You get this, end button here, similar to the Kuriyami, because, spoilers, the two swords are related. An eject button for the ride books, and you get a release button for the Kougouken blade, which obviously, this is so far the longest Seiken they've Like, this is probably like the second longest. I don't know. Like, I like the size of this. The handle is like pretty comfortable. Like, obviously, as you can see, my whole hand fits this thing. And like, it's an impressive size, if I had to be honest. Yeah, like, the sword's a lot, like, obviously more proportioned, the prop, but for what this provides, it's actually pretty sleek. And obviously the speakers, pull tab, this is where you slot the, you know, this is where you slot this into wherever. And I really do like this, the clear, glittery plastic and such. Obviously, because I already stated it, just size comparisons. Like, the gold plastic is honestly probably the same as the Kuriyami, purposely. But you can tell this is like a lot longer compared to the majority of the Seikens. So there's Rekka. And then I'll pull out Susune because it's kind of identical. And I just knocked the Wonder Red down. So let's just get the sounds right away because there's not much you can do by itself. So there, after 3 Henshin Seikens, the one that's not a Henshin Seiken actually announces itself. So just pressing the trigger doesn't do much. You get just slashing sounds. Then that's the unlocking sound. You don't get anything out of that. Pressing this. Just like the Kuriyami, both of these buttons activate the same thing. So if we insert this within the buckle like so, now we're in the Saikou driver, which still which is still the same thing. And that's when you release it. So if you insert a Wonder Ride book within here, which is within this section, so obviously you're going to use Bright Dragon. Obviously there is a divot here to press the button, like so. And as you slide in the Wonder Ride book, it will press this button here, which is essentially the release button. So obviously to finish the transformation, you just simply slide this off. Yeah, so that's it for the transformation. You can push this back still. And because I'm not going to explain this when I get to this, if you try to close the Wonder Ride book here, you can't because the button is already like sticking out when it's out. And temperature, woohoo. Okay, what I was trying to say is that essentially, so obviously the way this works is that when you release the Saikou out of the buckle, this piece comes out to essentially permanently keep the book open. And then obviously when you push it back down, it goes back. So obviously it's just simply this button. And then it has a hole here for that button. So, getting into the Wonder Ride book itself, let me poorly adjust this when not cut. So here we have the main storybook, Wonder Ride book for Saikou Kinnobuki, which is essentially gold weapon and silver weapon. Apparently it's, I don't remember what the story this one's based off of is called. It was like story of like the golden, something about a golden axe that's not the Sega game. So there, obviously, this one's interesting for sure. Obviously, it's mostly in this clear, glittery, cyan plastic, similar to the not rubber, the pliable plastic here, which is pretty neat. Size comparison with a normal Wonder Ride book, it's a lot taller and thicker because of the fact, as you can see, this one actually has three cell batteries and the speakers at this corner. However, it still has this cassette thing, even though you can barely see it. And then the QR code for Gomba Rising in the back, the Wonder Mark, which you can see the the chip right there, and the activation button, even though it's down here. The story page, Wonder text you can barely see, and then transformation page, which is interesting because this is obviously partly Saikou, which is pretty neat. I like this sticker they have for his chest. It's pretty neat. And then last but not least, the attack page. I don't know the purpose of why they did this, but okay. I can't even make up what this is supposed to be, if I have to be honest. And this is essentially where the LED is. I don't know why it's empty, but so with activation, obviously for you to actually see the LEDs, I'm going to have to angle it like this. And then surprisingly, we actually do get character phrases from Yuri. I think it's 4 with this press. Yeah. And just like Dragon Ignite and King Lion, if you press this, you get the activation. I think it's supposed to be for the booster, because it does somewhat work. Like, there's kind of no other reason as to why they would have that, but anyways. Story announcements, we actually have 4 here. I find it interesting to go, like, the 4 announcements essentially go back. I forgot what the P word is, but essentially, like, like the first, like parallels between English and Japanese. So that's pretty interesting, but anyways, that's essentially it for this, so. Okay, so obviously I already just shown it already, but the transformation for Saikou includes you having to press the release button and flipping the blade to the other side, which is satisfying for sure. And simply insert the Wonder Ride book. Yeah, for some reason Yuri doesn't even activate the book, he just only does the story announcement. And then you will simply insert the Wonder Ride book, and like so. There we get the standby, to which we complete it by sliding it off. And here we go with the transformation of Kamen Saikou and Kamen Saikou himself. He's a pretty interesting writer. I find it neat that essentially his arm is in this entire section. Like, I think his legs are supposed to be like here or something. Like the writer design is definitely interesting for sure. I don't know. Like, I don't really have a lot of comments on him because I honestly don't really. I honestly always forget that he is. This is indeed a writer. But the transformation is pretty neat and interesting. Like, if you're gonna tell it for this sake, because typically with the winter toys, they will typically have a new voice actor voicing the stuff. But this case, it's the same people. It's the same duo we've had. Champion, the guy that sung Todoroki's theme. Um, Again, the slashing is still the same. And then obviously I should point out the lights are only coming out of the Wonder Ride book and not the sword itself. I just realized there's a Wonder text on the handle, but only on this side. Okay. So to activate more sounds, just simply press the button on the side of Saikou. There we get the finisher for Saikou. And this one you do have to let the lights run out because essentially if you do press the button again, you're just canceling it. So, you know. Next one will be the summoning of Saikou's shadow. Which, again, is pretty neat. After this, now, we'll get, I think, 6 additional phrases from Yuri. I'll press it from here. Obviously, with the phrases, it'll actually allow you to press them. That's the finisher. And yeah, so that's, you know, essentially it with this mode of the Kougouken Saikou. Now we can do one additional finisher involving this button right here, to which you will need to do how you would typically do Caliber, Kuriyami stuff by simply, you know, pressing the button here and such. So I guess this time I'll actually do it from this angle, but just because I'm too lazy, I actually tried to get the camera up, but. I honestly don't know what this is. Like, I don't think he ever did in the show. This is apparently a finisher for Saikou's shadow, but I just feel like they really only did that because, you know, they needed to make use of this button and this. But yeah, that's essentially it. Obviously, you can still enter Wonder Ride books because it's the same thing. But obviously, that's not the whole point of this. The whole point of this one is to hold an entire sword. To which, after this point, just to get or to eject the Wonder Ride book, flip it back, press the release button, and yeah, that's essentially it. So let's take a look at this within the sword driver. Okay, so here we have the Ikazuchi. Obviously, because of the fact this one obviously is a storybook, so yay, Spada technically gets a big book. Obviously, the standby will play. Obviously, it's the same exact thing. You get the lights, obviously. Again, just like Dragon Egg Knight and King Lion, where we got Densetsu no Shinju, Katsude no Katsude no Shinju? No. Gosh, what was it called? Whatever that was. And then this one. I can't catch the first word, but obviously Monogatari is story and such. Now doing the like Geary sounds obviously going to be difficult because it just does the same thing. And if you want to cancel it, just simply press the button. And yeah. So yeah, this kind of just shows that essentially every time you pull the sword, it's just going to do the transformation. Because obviously you want to do the finisher, just like if it was in the Kougouken Saikou, just press the button. You can summon Shadow. Yeah. And then if you press this back, you don't get anything, obviously. However, the Kuriyami, I'll just show this. Because obviously you can still load this into the Saikou driver. This, if you push it back, you get the Saikou Shadow finisher, which is obviously it's just because of the fact that the Kuriyami actually allows you, not the Kuriyami, the buckles actually do allow you to push this all the way back, which essentially allows you to press this button press the side button for the finisher. But obviously, just like, you know, Dragon Egg Knight and King Lion, because this is a giant story, you'll only be able to scan this once. Let me reset this. Again, so it's kind of nice that we actually get a giant story, but a different writer. I did not mean to do that. So yeah, my thoughts overall on the Kougouken Saikou and the Saikou. I'm just calling it the Kougouken Saikou. Gosh darn it. This thing's really hard to actually sit. Typically, like, it's just because of my table. You can leave it like this, but then, obviously, like, I can only do that, like, from this point. I can't do that from back here. So, it's just my table is the issue. But, my thoughts overall on this thing is that at first I wasn't as too keen about it when it initially was released and such, because I was like, it's not it's interesting, but I kind of not really too big into it. But honestly, I think actually having it in hand, it's actually a lot of fun and refreshing. Like, Saikou is the only writer to actually have a Wonder Ride book that's pretty unique, and technically one that makes all the sounds within itself and not the device. And like, it's just pretty like, it's obviously the playability is very like standalone-ish and basic, which I can definitely see people having issues with that because I think most people would have expected Wonder Ride book compatibility, but especially because we already have the Kuriyami, I think it's all right. Because it's just interesting that technically it's like I just kind of like how they took they took a different approach with like this one isn't like necessarily a driver. Like it is a driver, but I mean like it's not like the sword driver of like having like heavy book compatibility and such. But I just like the sword itself is the belt, which is pretty interesting. And again, like it's just interesting to actually have a sword rider, like a rider that's literally a sword. I'm sorry if I'm just struggling with this, but like I'm gonna say it's optional overall. It is fairly cheap because it is a second quarter belt, and it because of how standalone-ish or like how standalone it can be. Because this thing makes all the sounds, and technically it is a requirement to get the like giant story sounds, and because most likely obviously because we're most likely gonna get this chip again in post story stuff because spoilers, Espada doesn't get anything else. So um I guess if you really want this chip, then go for it. But obviously if you're a big fan of Saikou, then I recommend it and such. I've just been struggling with this for the past like time I've been trying to talk about this. Like again, I can't like I just feel like I can't really talk about this completely for obvious reasons. But I'll just say like it's interesting for sure. I feel like this is a toy that like the more you play with it, the more you actually have enjoyment with. So yeah. That's it for the review. So this is PowerRider, and I'll leave you people. Bye.